All right. Hello there. Come on in. Welcome to Black Campaign School. Welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday to everybody. I'm so excited to talk to you tonight. Some of you are watching on blackcampaignschool.org. Some of you are on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, you can talk to me. I would love to see your messages. Um, but regardless, I have so much to share with you tonight. So why don't we go ahead and get started? I hope that you all are enjoying Black Campaign School. I have been enjoying bringing it to you. Let me get a sip of water as I get started. And I'll let you get comfortable. Happy Tuesday. I've been thinking about y'all since the last time I left you. Beautiful. Welcome, Miami. I know Ohio's in the building. So much love to my godmother, all my family that might be watching from Ohio. And I know I've got friends and leaders who are going to be checking in on this from all over the country. So I hope that I'm really able to give you some food for thought. Black Campaign School is your destination for voter analysis, for strategy, where you're at the center, where Black people and our futures are at the center. And so let's go ahead and get started. We are on class 3. Can you believe that? We are on class 3. So tonight, we are talking about the state of our voters. And there are actually people voting right now. If you live in Michigan, Kansas, Virginia, Washington State, a couple of others, I actually have a list in the presentation. They are voting. Key races will be decided tonight. And so we know that our power is consistently moving towards November. This is all an incredibly important time for us to be paying attention and getting good information. So I'm so glad that you're here with me because I intend to give you some. And I hope that even as you're watching now, you might text the link or tell a friend or a family member. You know, there's actually this lady who is giving Black voter information. You should make sure to follow her as we're working towards the midterm election in November. I want to be a place where you feel like you can get trustworthy and good info. And so we are on class 3. We started by talking about electoral justice. Last week, I had a really great time with leaders across the country talking about running for office. And this week, we are going to talk about the state of our voters. What was so fun, I'll just admit, it was fun. It's fun to put these together. I hope you're having fun too. All the Black nerds unite. I know that so many of us watch and look and learn and read all sorts of information about politics, or maybe you're just talking about it. I hope that this is an hour or so where you can really digest the information and take the next few days, take the summer, take time with your family to really think about what this means for Black civic engagement. Okay? I see Ohio's in the building. I hope y'all have your notebooks out. Get comfortable, like I keep saying. And if you learn anything tonight, it would mean the world to me if you let somebody know about it. Let them know. I learned this at Black Campaign School. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, you can learn about Black civic engagement at Black Campaign School. It also helps us grow. And so every time you credit us, I'm putting all of these presentations together, spending hours on it because I want you to have a free destination for information. So my ask in return, like, follow, subscribe. Um, I will never, ever, ever not laugh when I say that. I feel like I've waited 39 years to say that. Um, but also, I want you to continue to bring people into this conversation. All right, let's go. We're talking about systems. We're talking about systems. I hope you go back and look at the other two classes if you haven't been here. But I'm going to say it every single time. From the moment you are born into a system. And so whether it is you clocking in at work or swiping your card, you are a part of a broader layered system. And this space is where we talk about the political and the government system. So let's get into it. One of the reasons that I really wanted to create this space, have this conversation with you, is because so much has been won over the last decade, over the last 50 years, and in particular over the last century and 100 years. There's a lot that's said about what we've lost, and it has been a lot, right? We've been punished for the election of the first Black president. We've been punished for expanding Black political power. We've been punished for making racial justice the center of our conversations and demanding equity, demanding inclusion. But all of that was on the backs of so much strategy, so much intention and innovation that even got us to a place where we're debating and work and seeing ourselves in our system. In running for office last week, I went really deep, or not, I went deep into Black representation. And so you can go back and take a look. But currently, Congress, there are 15% of our United States Congress are Black, which is almost at parity with the Black population. I'm not saying that's enough, and I never will, but that means something. That's work. That is reflective of millions and millions of voters and years and years and years of labor and strategy. And so, as we look towards this last decade, what was happening in 2016? This is an incredibly important marker as we think about our strategies moving forward. If you're here on a Tuesday evening, then most likely you're some sort of leader. You're an organizer. You see yourself as civically engaged, and you want to make sure that others are too. Well, we need you. I made this presentation specifically for you. And that also means that you may have participated over the last decade of trying to move the ball forward for Black progress and Black power. And it's important that we root ourselves in where we are so that we know where we're going. And so it's one of the central questions that I have for this summer series. And tonight, we're going to talk in 4 parts. We're going to talk about the state of Black voters. I'm going to give you some numbers. We're going to talk about the state of Black people. I'm going to finish out by talking about engagement opportunities and where I feel like we can fill these gaps in our numbers right from our porches. So much about what we know about outreach is not rocket science. It is an art and a science in many ways. But I've spent my entire career trying to get others to believe, organizing others to engage in their democracy or to take an action towards something that was on the ballot. And what I learned is that it's really getting down to the most simple parts of building relationships that are winning. Sometimes we just overcomplicate things. I'm going to show you a lot of data. It might actually be a little bit too much, but I wanted to give you a lot of information so that you also can make your own sense and your own picture. But one thing that is the through line is that we need to invite as many people as possible into this democracy, into voting, into representing themselves, their family. It's important that as we share information, that we are reminding people of how powerful it is to work as a collective. You're going to see that there's so much emphasis nowadays on us acting as individuals. Voting gives us an opportunity to really measure our power as a community. And so Black people are as diverse as anyone else. There are so many different strategies to getting us to take action. but more than any other racial group in the United States, Black people have a confidence about our voting power because we know we are voting as a collective. And so the data shows that over and over again. And I'm just proud to know that. Yeah. Y'all doing okay? I see you. I see you. So there's a lot of good research. There's a lot of good research. I really did enjoy reading a lot of things. I've just created a list of all of the research that's in here. You can pause and Google it and and spend some time there. I also will, try to do a good job of kind of posting some links where possible. I'm going to show you some websites. Um, Start to socialize the people around you to be looking for good information. Right now, so many people are like, I'll do my research, I'll do my research. Well, there's a lot. A lot of people are really are really focused on what Black voters think and what we say, etc. Not enough. I will say not enough. Brennan Center for Justice is a great one. Pew Institute for Research is one of the biggest research institutions in the United States that is looking across civic engagement and across racial diversity groups. Now, Hit Strategies and Sojourn Strategies, I'm going to talk about. These are two Black-owned firms that are specifically focused on people of color outreach, on people of color trends, et cetera. And then I've included a couple of organizations that are also doing really great research. Now, Howard University has an initiative on public opinion that's led by students, and there used to be a ton of information. I got some from there tonight, but they actually haven't updated in several years. So if any of you out there have sway on Howard University's initiative on public opinion, we need them to be updating their stuff. Get them some money so that they can keep giving us good research. Oh, hello there, doctor. Greetings from Raleigh, North Carolina, where I plan to run for North Carolina State Auditor in 2028 as a Democrat and a North Carolina Lead Fellow. Beautiful. Welcome into class. We are so happy to have you. I know that you're going to do amazing. If you weren't here last week, check out Running for Office 201. That's on the YouTube. If you just look up Jessica Bird on YouTube, and then it'll also be on our website. So this is our research for tonight. Let's keep going, okay? We've got an upcoming general election. You know this, and I'm going to keep saying it. And our job as practitioners of the election, or just civically engaged people, is to be leaders in our communities, to get people the information that they need and to make it a joyful experience where possible, all right? So today, we have, last week there actually were primaries. Today there are some really important primaries. Michigan, Kansas, Washington, Missouri. In a few of these places, they are battleground states where both House races and U.S. Senate, like in Michigan, are up for grabs. I've shared in the past two classes that we have an incredible opportunity in the fall. There is power to be won, okay? I do not fall perfectly in the binary, the Democrat, the Republican, I don't. I'm gonna talk about that at length because it's important. So many of us are trending independent, which mostly just means we don't feel reflected. But that doesn't mean that we can't leverage our power in order to make positive things happen for ourselves, our family, Black people, etc. So look at this map. Look at this map. See where your state is. It's pretty small down there, so I apologize. You can find this on ballotpedia.org, Ballotpedia. But where it's red are places where there are Senate and U.S. House races. There are only a handful, but guess what? We only need 4. We only need 4 in order to have the Democrats lead the United States Senate. Do you know how powerful it would be around voting rights, around healthcare, around affordability crisis, and all of the things that we're demanding to have the United States Senate? Okay, that's a stake, beloveds. The United States House, okay? Like I said, the places that you're looking with the red are both. But the green is the United States Congress. Do you know how many the Democrats need to take the Congress? Three. Three of these states have to go. If you live in one of these states, you are going to be inundated with resources. And so you can be a Pied Piper of those resources. You can be ensuring that the people who need it get it. And now I've said this before, but this the gray area means that you might not get the same level of resources that everyone else. I think that that's unfair, and that we need ways for us to be federally creating equity around the spending for voter education. We have to be a pro-voting country. We have to be a pro-voting society. But until then, we take responsibility for ourselves. So if you in this gray area, no pun intended, okay? If you're in this gray area, think about what you may do to take responsibility for your entire family, for your entire block. Okay, I love my neighborhood. I'm reporting live from Philadelphia. I talk to my neighbors all the time about all sorts of things. And it is important to me also as the election is coming. Miss Sharon, have you heard about the election? Do you plan to vote? It seems corny. It seems like something that might not happen. But as we prepare ourselves to navigate the challenges ahead, we have to take on what we expect from other people to do for our folks. Y'all hear? Y'all, yes. She says, say that again. Yes. Hello, Miss Tracy. I'm so happy that you're here. Tracy's loving the series. Me too. Me too. Okay, let me take a breath. Okay, this is the federal map. This is the federal map. Y'all are going to rock with me until the fall. And I commit to you, if you all really are enjoying this, I will do a really good breakdown right around the election day. So you keep coming, you keep giving us feedback, and I'll make sure that we have the information going. So I want you to take a look at this state-based map, okay? In the first episode, Electoral Justice, I go much deeper into the state based opportunities. But I wanted to remind you, as we talk about Black voters, I want to remind you of what's at stake at the state level. Look at this red. These are all of the Republican state legislatures. There are hundreds of governors, lieutenant governors, secretary of states, and there are hundreds of state reps that are up for election. Do you see how polarized we are? Do you see how the middle of the country in the South looks? So much of that is because we are hemmed up in this two-party system, okay? But we know that there's opportunity to have representation when we vote, all right? And at Black Campaign School, we operate inside a framework called electoral justice. Electoral justice is the idea that we are utilizing the electoral system. We are leveraging it, harnessing it to achieve long-term social and civic transformation. I have never put my ballot in and thought, complete, I'm done. I'm consistently building on my vote by making it better each time. One of the reasons that we have so many progressive ideas on the ballot, progressive people on the ballot, is because of decades and decades of progressive infrastructure and people consistently showing up for ideas that could get to the root of some of our problems. Y'all with me on that? All right, so we moving in electoral justice, and we know, beloveds, we know that we live in a system. We do. We do. I know. We don't like it either. And we're going to hear about it from all our friends and neighbors, and they're allowed to complain about it. And all of that is true. And honestly, our system often does feel like a brick wall that you're moving up against. But by affirming it, not affirming it, by acknowledging it, knowing how to navigate it, we can disrupt it and we can change it. All right. So the system that we're going to talk about tonight is the voting system. Now, this is a list in no particular order of the ingredients of what I see as the voting system. Okay. I bet that this is not perfectly complete. it is a layered infrastructure like the other systems, right? In fact, if you're watching here on YouTube and you can comment and there are other pieces of this system, you let me know. But this is what the voting system is made up of: the Board of Elections, your Secretary of State's office, the election industrial complex, which is made up of billions of dollars, thousands of people who are working on behalf of elections. The election industrial complex includes the entire media apparatus that makes ads, that's constantly marketing different candidates. It makes up the postal apparatus that's sending you emails. The election industrial complex is the network that's saying what races matter. And it's essentially the economy of elections. Like I said, it's worth billions of dollars. We know billionaires are moving to the right and have captured the right because they are protecting their billions by buying the government, which means in many ways, this huge progressive spectrum of us. Some of us identify as Democrats. Some of us identify as progressive. Some identify as democratic socialists. Others truly do say, I'm liberal, I'm a moderate. But we have a huge spectrum of people who are being engaged then by all sorts of practitioners who aren't being bought by the government, who have a lot little resources, but who are navigating this complex. We have the Electoral College. That is not the only system, but it is a huge primary way in which it is the primary way in which the presidential election is decided. We know that we all take so much effort to make, the national vote happen, but yet somehow this group of electors gets to leapfrog us. Can you imagine? Leapfrog the people and say what they want. Actually, that just made me think we might have to do like a good electoral college one. Let me know if you want to hear about that. And then lastly, and I'm going to talk about this next. Um, the Board of Elections is a state-based operation, and nationally, there are really four mechanisms. Actually, let me say three. There are three places that oversee elections. Congress has the right to set forth laws that influence and affect the election. The Department of Justice and the Election Assistance Commission do oversee and enforce the rules of voting. And then the Supreme Court, which is where a lot of these battles are hemmed up right now. They have the power to enforce the Constitution around elections. But this next part is really interesting. This next part is interesting. So in my research, I was reminded that the United States is really widely known globally for its decentralized voting system. The United States is known for its decentralized voting system, which means in our Constitution, it says that states run elections. In Article 1, Section 4, it says that states run elections and they give the primary authority over the time, the place, and the manner of elections. Did you know that? Did you know that we essentially have 50 state administered elections, which then means we have dozens of county-based elections. And then even so, getting beyond that, there are local rules that don't always connect to what the rest of the county is expected. This is why we have to stay informed. All of this is systemic. And we can say over and over again, the system wasn't designed for us. It wasn't designed for us. Well, there is a design. There is a design. And right now we are seeing it hemmed up. It's in tension with each other right now. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So right now, let me make this a little bigger so you can see it. We're in really a constitutional battle. Let me do this one. Let me see. Yes. Look at that. All right. So one, I just said states run elections, right? So each state sets its own registration rules, the ballot design, the voting methods, and counting procedures. And local and county officials, they're the ones that do the work, okay? And they rely on hundreds of temporary workers who show up to the work to oversee or to administer, execute the elections. Excuse me. Those are poll workers. My mother was one of them. She worked at the same polling location for over 30 years. She absolutely loved it. She was a presiding judge, which meant essentially she would, sorry, let me go ahead. Let me get comfortable. I'm sliding off my chair. I'm getting excited. Um, where she would sign the voters in, she would help set up the machines, and at the end of the night she would be the ones in partnership with all the other election workers who would then send in what all of the electronic tallies were. Now, when my mother was alive, when she was doing this over 10 years ago, it was not a violent or frontline job to be a poll worker. And now it certainly is. We have much more extensive poll worker training across the country. There are protections for poll workers, and we are seeing a heightened violence. And so all of this is falling on our states. All of this is falling on our states. Um, and so part of what I also want you to do as you're thinking about the information I'm sharing with you, and you're putting it through the prism of your own campaign, of your own community and campaign, but community. Who are the organizations where you live that are protecting voters, that are protecting poll workers, and that are ensuring that people get really, really, really good information? The last thing I'll say about this, about the states before moving on, is we don't always do a good job of just plain informing our voters. Most voters just want to know where they go, what time the polling location is open, um, where they go, and what days are election day. And I have to say, I live in a so-called battleground. I live in West Philadelphia. I live in one of the blackest cities in the country. I live in a battleground state in Pennsylvania. I am consistently hearing about my community on national news and how important it is. And I cannot tell you how much information I get that is incomplete, that doesn't say election day on it. It doesn't have where I might go and get more information. And so we can all up our ante on this. Okay. We're going to talk about the challenges. And it is all, we deserve to have great information. It shouldn't all be on us, but let's take responsibility for getting people some really good information. Okay, that was a little bit of an aside. Okay, so now I want to talk about these other two pieces that oversee or create, make up this voting system. Okay, so Congress has the power to override state rules. And now this is what we're seeing being contested now, right? Is that our president is wants the Congress, wants the Senate to pass the SAVE Act. And the SAVE Act would essentially reduce and create incredible barriers for people to voting. It would require documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote. It would require photo ID at the polls. And it would also mandate frequent voter roll reviews to target non citizens. And it would require states to share voter registration information with the federal government. Now, listen, what did I just say? States oversee elections. And so our president and his colleagues have drafted a piece of legislation to make it harder to vote by requiring all sorts of documentation that you should not need, by forcing the states to share information with the federal government when the Constitution does not say that that's necessary. This is how we're hemmed up right now. And this is how, when it says we're this decentralized power, this is the strain on our three branches of government that we are experiencing right now. And it all falls inside the courts, which is where we are hearing about these really, really important battles that have so much influence on our participation. And so the courts enforce the constitutional limits on the states, and they enforce the constitutional limits on Congress. And we know that the Department of Justice has the ability to enforce voting rights laws, and they can sue states over violations. And this is how the president is currently trying to seize power over states and to undermine our elections right now. Is what he's doing is utilizing the Department of Justice and the Attorney General as his personal attorney, and he's demanding and using the FBI to do this in some places, demanding voter information, demanding that states and Secretary of States hand over voter rolls. And so this is a huge threat. This is a huge threat. And so I want you to keep your eye on this. And this information is power, okay? The next time somebody starts talking to you about the voter system, you're like, you know what? States run elections, actually, okay? Our federal government is there to enforce and execute the laws, but our states are who's responsible for our government, all right? So let's keep moving. Let me check the chat. All right. I'm in New York 13, working on GeoTV, need resources. All right. We'll go back to our running for office. You also can send me an email at win@blackcampaignschool.org. Would love to answer some questions and maybe even do a one-on-one with you, depending on the time frame. Y'all doing good? Okay, let's keep going. Let's talk about us. Let's talk about us. So it is just so important for me as a person, but also as an organizer, to say that the state of Black voters is about Black people, that Black voters are Black people. From 20 years in the political industry, I have spent time in hundreds of meetings that have all of these shorthand words and lingo for talking about the Black vote. Some people talk about it in terms of specific data. Some people talk about it in terms of how much. I've been in meetings where someone will say it costs $150 per voter. And everything about the Black vote was distilled in this group think and what it would take to get us who they are, what they care about, so that we can figure out how to engage them and organize them. Isn't that what this is all about? It's a game of multiplication. It's a game of addition. And so everything that we're doing is to add to our numbers, not just navel gaze and say, oh, why aren't these people doing what we want them to do? And instead be curious about the people that we're talking about. Black voters are Black people. And according to the census, which I know is not perfect or complete, there are 51.6 million of us. There are 51.6 million Black people in the United States. Let me get to my notes because I got some good stuff. Yeah. And there is a growing diversity of Black people internally. I enjoyed nearly half of the Black population is under the age of 30, which I find really interesting. And we are currently in what many historians are calling a second great migration, and that's heading southwest. So some of the largest places where Black people are moving are Texas, Utah, Washington State, Arizona. And the reason that Black people are moving is because of housing conditions, because of the amount that it takes, the cost of living. That's what I'm trying to say. The cost of living. They're moving because of the environment, being displaced because of fire and other types of natural disasters. And so, being a student of our community right now would really help us to gain perspective on what's needed. Um, and that's not even to talk about the sheer diversity of geography. I've had the privilege of working in nearly 43 states, of working in 43 states in this country. And what I learned through being a campaign junkie and working in so many different communities is that we pretty much have a country of 50 countries. Every single place not only is administering its own election, but is has its own culture, has its own language, has its own understanding of community and how to be together. And so I want you to also put this through the prism of your own state and your own community and where you live. The Black population grew exponentially from 36 million just 26 years ago to 51 million. And a lot of this makes up for Black immigrants, and also the rise in multiracial identity and Black pride, people taking pride in Black identity. I think this is a really important fact for us to know that at so many times I've heard, like, is it 13%? Is it 14%? Is it 15%? Right now, the census puts us at about 15% of the American population. There are people around the world who are living in Black dominant societies, on the continent, right, who are living in Black societies. And there are people in cities who are living in Black societies. I imagine that Atlanta might say that. In Philadelphia, I oftentimes feel like I could spend the entire day and only see Black people. But that is not the majority of our country. That's not the majority of our country. Most of us are navigating multiracial communities where there are all different types of people. Maybe we're the minority, but in many ways, we're just a part of a broader fabric. Seeing ourselves and how our families are changing within that is going to make all of our voter strategies much, much better. Okay. All right. I want to get us to some data. I do want to remind us of something quickly. And this is a newspaper article from about 125 years ago. July 29th in Raleigh, North Carolina, voters challenged or North Carolina, 150 colored voters are challenged in one township in Wake County for improper voter registration. This is from the Brennan Center for Justice. And they also say this: the first laws allowing private citizens to challenge their fellow citizens were developed between 1867 and 1880, right after Reconstruction, right as Black people, we're coming into society. The question of our citizenship is on the table. Guess what happens? Laws that say, you know what, actually, you can police the people around you. And so they allowed white voters in the voting booth to challenge Black voters around them. This is the legacy of this country and our so-called democracy. And so challenging Black voters is at the core. It is the heart of the opposition strategy to keeping us from utilizing our voice. It is not to romanticize it. It's not to affirm it. It is to say we've always been navigating these hoops, these barriers. We're going to keep moving forward in it and engaging our folks. And listen, our folks are like, oh, wait, the more you disenfranchise us, the more I want to participate. And it shows over and over and over again that the more that we are seeing that we're being kept from voting, the more it's driving us to the polls. And so we don't want to share information to just say the system is going to do what it's going to do. We want to share information about how it is that we move through that system. And we have 34.4 million possibilities right now. Of our 50 million Black people, 34 million of us are eligible and projected to vote in 2024. And I want to say this. a lot of my information was from 2024. A lot of the current census information, a lot of presidential data, obviously. And so you'll see where there's really current information, but I couldn't find the eligible voters currently. If you have that, drop it in the chat or shoot it to me. But this is based on the last presidential election, okay? So there are 34 million. So some of the rest of that gap are disaffected voters, are unregistered voters, but some of our voters are not eligible. They're not eligible because of their immigration status. They might not be eligible because of their record status. We know in many places, if you have a record, we have had a lot of progress on ensuring that returning citizens who are coming home from incarceration are able to vote, but in not all places. And so this gap is made up of a lot of things, okay? And this is how we've been voting. 60% of us, 60% of that 34 million are voting. In 2016, 10 years ago, it was 60. 2020 was a peak. We had nearly 63% of us voting. How do we make that more? How do we make that more? That's just 60% of those who are eligible. That's leaving millions on the table. I could get them. I know you can get them. So let's go get them. We got to get them. 2020 was a peak in Black voter engagement in the history of Black voter engagement. 2020 was the peak. I've talked about this in the last two classes. I'm sure I'll talk about it in the future, but a 25 million person racial justice uprising has the power to move the people. A global pandemic that has turned the lights on and exposed our system for what it is, a president unable and unwilling to deliver. There's a lot in here about the difference between us voting under a Republican president and voting under a Democratic president. So that's also in this number as well. And one thing to remember is that 10 years ago, there was a historic drop in Black voter participation, and people have been making up for it ever since. But this is a fun fact that Black Campaign School will continue to remind you of. 50% of our voters live in just 8 states, and every single one of those states are in the South. There are 8 states in the South where nearly 50%, between 30 and 50%, between 30 and 50% of the states are Black. And so this is a huge thing to know, that many national, like when we get to the federal elections, when we get to the presidential, so many of those candidates, they're going to be talking to the South. And the reason they're talking to the South is because 50% of Black voters are living in the South. Okay. Hello, Geneva. Mwah, mwah. Lots of love. So I'm going to show you this map. It's a little wonky. It kind of looks like a Lego map. I like it. I found it on Pew Research. If you want to go, they have a lot of good maps on there. And I'm going to show you some of the data from this. Let me make this just a teeny bit bigger so you can see it. Maybe here, actually. Here you go. So the District of Columbia, which some people would say is up south, and southern states have the highest eligible shares of voters who are Black. So you can zoom in on this, you can take a look at this, but check out Louisiana, 32%, Mississippi, 37%. By the time you get to Georgia, 1 in 3 voters in Georgia are Black people. That is why it is so important that we engage our folks. There is power to be won everywhere. Now, you may remember that earlier map that I showed you. Louisiana was not on it. Mississippi was not on it. South Carolina was not on it as battleground states. That's because a person at a national level or DC may not think that a Louisiana voter is important. But to you and me, to our people, every voter is important. And so we're going to engage and take these opportunities to make our people's voices heard. I had the opportunity of living in DC for almost 10 years. It was my home base while I was running around on campaigns. I absolutely loved it. I got to be there during the Obama era, which was just a really important time. Obviously, could say so much more about that. Um, but it was the most disenfranchised that I ever felt as a voter. What most people nationally don't think about, and what I want to remind you of if you don't live in Washington, D.C., is that they do not have a governor. They do not have a voting U.S. senator. They don't have a voting U.S. congressperson. Their mayor, the mayor, and really the city council serve as the governor and the state legislature of the city. And so when you go to vote, sometimes there is one thing on the ballot and it's for your alder person. It's for maybe there's a tax levy or something about your street. And I still went every time. We still go every time. But this is one of the blackest cities in the country. And they have one of the largest, if we zoom in, one of the largest Black populations, and that is completely disenfranchised. That is not an accident. That a city with 4 million people and thousands and thousands and thousands of Black voters are disenfranchised. It is so important as we do Black voter engagement at a national level that we include DC statehood in the work that we do, because it is a Black issue. If we care about Black people, then we care about our nation's capital. We care about Black voters there. And so we want them to not be taxed without representation. This is something that I feel is unbelievably underreported. Okay, let me take a deep breath. Let me take a deep breath. See how we doing. See how we doing. I'm gonna take a drink. Y'all all right? Okay. I got lots more to show you. So my next slide, I want to talk about party ID. A big part of our voting system is the two-party system, which I've mentioned. And historically, Black people in the United States have been known, for at least for the last 50 years, mind you, as Democrats. The democratic mechanism or infrastructure has spent the most money to claim us, to court us, etc. It has been over the last 20 years that Republicans have utilized issues like criminal justice, taxes, expanding corporate wealth to really drive wedges in between Black voters. And I'll say, that there's a growing diversity in Black political thought. And there's always been a diversity in Black political thought that expands the two-party system. But over the last few years, there is a lot of information about how there is changing party ID across Black voters. So one is in 2013, Black people identified as Democrats 65%. Last year, according to the PRR Research Institute, there was a 16-point drop where only 49% of Black voters identify as Democrats. This is huge. This is huge. A lot of these losses have been since 2021, just in the last several years. And no, Black people who are not identifying more as Republicans, although you'll see that there is a trend towards voting Republican, they are identifying as independent. They're identifying as disaffected, as not belonging to anything and anyone. And the Gallup data shows similar. It says that Black adults who identify as leaning Democratic, it went from 77% as leaning Democratic, so again, just reflective of that spectrum, to 66%. An 11% drop in 3 years to identifying as a Democrat. This is major in terms of how people should be assuming that they are talking to Black people. Black people are not just these knock and drag voters where you go and you bang on our door and you say, go do what it is that you want to do. No. 50% of us are asking to be deeply persuaded, And we already know that if you're in our base, you already need persuaded anyways, because the persuasion is about getting you out to vote. The persuasion is about having you take the action. So all Black voters are persuasion voters. We're persuading you to take action, we're persuading you to care, and we're persuading you to believe, okay? It is so important if you are a practitioner of elections right now that you need to take Black people out of this permanently solid Democratic view. Give us the chance by organizing us with respect meaningfully. Okay. Now, despite all of this, 85% of Black voters are voting for Democrats, right? So this is not a huge drop off. But you know what that says to me? We know what it is we're supposed to be doing. We're not going down on a sinking ship. We can look around, survey the scene. Okay, who is the least likely for me to die? And we can cast our vote based on that. But that's not enough. And at Black Campaign School, we say that's not enough. Okay, we want more. We want more from our systems. We want more from our voter engagement. We want more from our strategies. Okay, so this is a visual that shows you this decline. Look at that blue line, how it's declining. Black independent is moving up. You know, I've often, as a campaign manager, you know, independent is this persuadable bucket that people spend a lot of time on. But more and more and more, we're identifying as independent as a way to say, you're not going to tell me what I believe. You're not going to tell me what it is, you're not going to tell me what to do. But we don't have an independent party. We don't have an infrastructure in order to get out independent thought. And so we have to think about that. Where is this independent energy being harnessed? Where is it that we are galvanizing people who want to be seen as independent voters? How are we creating an on-ramp into their participation? And look, I think this red line is important because a lot of people are going to say a lot of things over this next few months about Black people moving and trending Republican. It just doesn't really bear out that much. Yes, there are a couple of points that are saying I'm a Republican, but Black people are voting for Trump. They're actually not voting for the Republican Party. And so, what's up with that? Let's talk about it a little more, okay? Let's talk about it a little more. Let's get into gender. So much is said, so much is said about gender and the Black vote. There's a lot of data. I actually, maybe one of the classes is specifically about a gender breakdown. There's a lot of information here. And what I want to do is shout out here HIT strategies, Sojourn strategies, who are really doing great research on this. In particular, there is, here we go. Can you see this? Can you see this tab on my screen? I think so. Can you guys see it? Okay, very good. All right, this is called blackmenvote.org. I know that there are other Black men organizations. The reason why I wanted to lift this one up is because they have extensive research on Black men. And in particular, they have a link to the report that I'm just going to tell you a little bit about, okay? So that's blackmenvote.org. Let me get back to you. Can you see me? Very good. Beautiful. So Black men favored Trump by 12 percentage points in the 2024 election. That's actually higher than the 2020 election, while Black women favored Harris by 7 points. Trump made gains among all men of all ethnicities in 2020. And then there was just a steady drumbeat for women. Like women across racial groups are voting for Democrats a little more. Black women overwhelmingly are voting for Democrats up into the 90s. And so I'm going to show you this map that is like very loud. Okay, it's very loud. My eyes can't necessarily focus on it either, but these types of things do help us to understand where our voters are. So the headline of this graph is that there has been a rise in support for Trump among Black voters, but not necessarily for the Republican Party. Now what this does is it shows across gender, it shows across ethnicity. You can zoom in and play with this. This is from Pew Research Center online. But this next slide is very basic, but I wanted to show you these numbers, okay? So Black men in 2020 voted for the Democratic Party at 87%, or voted for Biden in 87%. Now, Black men voted for Trump. I keep doing that by 12%. Black women voted for Biden Harris 95% in 2020. And just 5% of Black women voted for Trump. In 2024, we see a dip on all of this, okay? Black men voted for the Democrat at 75%. So let me just actually say, voted for Kamala Harris at 75%, and 21% of Black men voted for Donald Trump. And Black women, 89%, whereas 10% of Black women, but still doubled. Still doubled. I'm going to make a more beautiful slide that we can share and actually say a lot more about this. But this is the conversation that we have to have at Black Campaign School as we prepare for this upcoming midterms, as we prepare for the presidential. Where are we? What's going on with us? What's going on? Is it the two-party system hemming us up and we want the opportunity to really have an independent voice? Is it that Trump is a compelling candidate that actually created the infrastructure and the message to reach our voters? You know, there's a lot of folklore about this. And you know, what's so important is that we actually know what our people are saying. And so often people are like, oh, the men are doing this, and the young people are doing this, and the this are doing this. But what is it about? Is it about him really? I believe, would you like to know what I believe? I believe, I believe that we're always, people in general, but in my experience as an organizer, we're always looking for a powerful and affirming message. We're always looking for the opportunity to be a part of something, not to vote against something and not be told what to do. I'm going to talk a lot more about this, but there's so much about Black men. And I really do encourage you to dig into it, to talk to the Black men in your life, to really take some leadership on understanding the nuances here. There is on the Hit Strategies website, there's a full deck of their research where they go line by line into the thousands of Black men that they interviewed, what they said, what their feedback was. But I'm going to show you what I thought was a really important piece of information from their data. The majority of Black men go to YouTube for breaking news, followed by Instagram, then Twitter and Facebook. This is largely consistent across all states. So we are seeing that 60% of the news of Black men, or that Black men get, is coming from YouTube. Hello. Come here, join us at Black Campaign School. We hope that you see us on YouTube. Just type in Jessica Bird. You can tell all your friends. But what this says to me more than that YouTube is an important platform for voter education is that our news is shifting. And what we have the responsibility and really the opportunity to do is to make sure our folks have good information. If they are looking for it, They are not looking for it in the places that us nerdy cells are looking for it. If they are saying that they're going to go do research, they might not get into the crosstabs of the research like you and I might, right? But what we can do is to consistently remind people what they're a part of. You're a part of something. Millions and millions of us are voting together. This is where you vote. This is how you get that information. And ensuring that we're making sure that we are not being elitist about our opportunities to educate. All right. I'm glad y'all are enjoying this. Thank you for the feedback. And so let's talk a bit about young people. I will say there's more, there's so much more here. There's so much more here. And so this is not going to feel like enough. And in fact, a lot of the voter data really lumped in Gen Z and millennials together, which I just don't think paints a clearest enough picture of some of these generational divides. But this is what many young voters under the age of 40 are saying. They are experiencing, 39 and a half. Oh my God, I didn't even tell y'all that today is my half birthday. I'm 39 and a half today. Anyway, shout out to the millennials. But under 40, are overwhelmingly saying that we are experiencing a political homelessness, which goes right back to everything that I've been saying, that there are all of these ways that we're exercising that. We're like, you don't get to tell me what to do. I don't belong with you. I don't belong with you. In fact, I don't feel like I belong anywhere. So many researchers about Black voter participation are calling this a great realignment. It's this idea that we are moving towards a more independent ecosystem around our voting, and we are not identifying with these parties. Now, Movement Voter Project, shout out to y'all, shout out to them. They did some really great research. You can go to their website about the 2025 off year elections, in particular in New Jersey and Virginia, where there were huge Democratic gains. And what their research showed is that even that in the groups where researchers said were disaffected, like young people, like men, that actually their voter participation rose when there was something to vote for on the ballot. Okay. And so that's huge. And some of our issues, this slide came out a little funky, is because 10 years ago, the fight for 15 was one of the most important national issues. Raising the minimum wage was one of the most important national issues. Housing and ensuring that people could be housed was one of the most important issues. And so this is coming up. People want solutions. They want examples. We have places across the country that are really testing solutions, offering solutions. Lift those up. One of the things that's so important to know about Black voters is that even if we're not voting for the top of the ticket, like say we're not messing with the person who's number one, if there's something on there that motivates us, like a referendum around housing, like a new amendment to the state constitution, Black voters participate. And so if you make plain what's at stake, even if it's not a person's name, this is where electoral justice gets juicy, because there are practitioners across the country that are making sure our ballots aren't just about candidates, but have all sorts of things that you can vote for that really affect your daily life. So let me keep going. I know that y'all are probably either eating dinner, maybe you're pouring your second glass of wine. But I've got a little more information for you. So, jobs and unemployment is second. Over 300,000 Black women have left the workforce, are unemployed, have been laid off. This is a huge, huge, huge time to be discussing workforce and development. If there are people in your life who are not interested in voting, they do not say that they are political. Maybe their Tinder profile says, I'm not political. Okay. I just heard a story about that today, which is such a trip, but it's so true. So many people are just like, I've had enough. Okay. They may have been laid off. they may be experiencing housing insecurity. And so this is a way to be talking to folks. AI automation is accelerating our unemployment. The Congressional Black Caucus Foundation has a lot of good information about Black unemployment numbers right now, if this is something that interests you. Healthcare. This is why I became a political strategist. My father died unnecessarily when I was a child, when I was 9 years old. I knew that he died because he couldn't take off work to get the true care that he needed. I knew that he died because we don't care about working people having time to recover, have time with their families. And because I knew our healthcare system was corporate and only cares about the money that it can make. And so at every turn in my career, I have consistently been voting to get good health care. When I had to close my business in 2023, after so much hardship and residue from the pandemic, I was uninsured for a long period of time. I'm trying to jump rope inside a system that I think I know. Our healthcare system is trash because it's run by corporations, and it's consistently the top for Black voters to be talking about and hearing about. So if you have somebody who's like, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, okay, well, you know what? Let me talk to you about something. You're allowed to not care. But the reason that I vote is because I think that we all deserve good health care. And your vote could actually ensure that we elect a person that could make that real, just like we already have. You could even vote for conditions where more healthcare is possible. So fight for this. Our people care about the same things we care about, and we should be talking to them in a respectful way. Voting rights is an incredibly important issue, but I want to name here that it is generational. It is oftentimes over 50 that care about voting rights. Over and over again, the research was showing that young people do not feel moved by the idea of democracy, like literally just the big D democracy narratives. Vote for democracy, fight for your democracy. Younger people are like, which one? One. Like, do we have one? And so keeping it real with folks about the fact that we have this system that we're navigating, and our democracy is aspiring. We can be honest about that. But every time we flex it, we have the opportunity to transform it. And then let me tell you, in the top 5 issues that Black voters named over and over again was distrust. Can you believe that? Distrust, an emotion, is one of the top issues of Black voters. I'm going to say a bit, more about this. I talk a lot about this at camp. It is one of the reasons why I felt very called to build Black Camp as a sacred container for dialogue and reflection, is because I think that there's a lot that we have to look ourselves in the eye about the lack of trust in any of us and in all public institutions and public facing organizations. We have lost the trust of the people. Elected officials have lost the trust. A lot of public organizations have lost the trust. And people over and over again don't feel like they can even trust the information that they're getting. And so it's on us. It's on us to solve this. It's not enough to just say, what do you mean you don't trust us? What do you mean? We have to inspire trust. We have to lead by example, be willing to change course when possible. Over and over again, Black voters are like, I don't like anybody. I don't like anybody who's representing me. I don't like either party. And so, what are we doing when we're saying we want millions and millions of people to engage in their democracy, but they don't mess with us. They don't mess with us. And I want them to. I want them to. So these are some of our issues, obviously, so many more. But I'm speaking to the organizers out there, I'm speaking to the candidates out there. This is not just about what you want to talk about. It's not just about what you think that we should be talking about. It is your job as a practitioner of electoral justice to know the people that you're serving, what they care about. If it's not these 5 things, if your community is something totally different, you need to know that. And you should be speaking to them about those things in a language where our folks can understand with a lot of deep respect and humility. We do not know better than people. We don't know better than what's happening at people inside people's houses and at their kitchen table. So we got to move with a lot of respect. And this is showing up in the idea of disaffected voters. Sojourn Strategies is a Black woman-led research hub for Black voters. They do a lot of great research. Shout out to Dr. Katrina Gamble. And they published a report that was made up of 5 years of research on what they're identifying as this disaffected electorate. Okay, I'm going to come back and read this, but I want to tell you what Webster says that disaffected means. Okay, disaffected is an adjective meaning discontented, disloyal, and resentful, especially toward people in power or a group or idea that you used to support. I think that is so good and so like disaffected. Yeah, I'm annoyed with you. I'm resentful that you've taken me for granted. I'm frustrated. And you know what? I'm disloyal. Because how have you earned my loyalty? Of all sorts and all types, right? Disaffected. They also name it as the loss of support. It describes people who feel unhappy and separate from a system, organization, or a leader they once trusted. So now going back to their research, you can find this on sojournstrategies.org. You can download the entire report. It's really, really interesting. I had a chance to read through it all. 5 years. Some of our folks are doing 5 years of research, okay? And so what they estimate is that the disaffected electorate makes up about 35% of all adults across racial disparity. Okay, so this is tens of millions of people that they describe as at a risk of checking out of democratic life altogether. Disaffected meaning not only do they not trust anything, they don't care about participation. And so what they set out to do is to understand this group of people through a survey of nearly 5,000 people. And what I'm going to do is just show you some top lines. Like I said, this is a multi-page report, but a lot is going to be said about Black disaffected voters. A lot is going to be said about why we are voting, why we choose to vote for Trump or support Trump, why we choose not to participate. And I want us to keep at the heart of it the emotionality, the psychology. I want us to keep in mind this feeling of disloyalty. Who says that I should believe or participate a certain way? If you can remember that sentiment of a person saying, you actually don't have the right to tell me, how would that change your strategy? How would it change the way that you're approaching your tactics for your campaign and for your outreach? We have time for all of this, okay? It's the first week of August. It's Barack Obama's birthday. It's my half birthday. It's a month till Beyonce's birthday, okay? So we have so much possibility. We can still be thinking about what it is that we're gonna do. So let's talk about disillusionment, okay? Let's talk about disillusionment. So again, this is a multiracial group of people that they surveyed, but I want to pull out the Black sentiment here. So what's interesting is starting with disillusionment and this idea that maybe things can't change, that you're over it. We actually are at the top of how do I explain this? Yeah, we're at the top. So there's only 16% of us that say I'm a great deal disillusioned. Where 30% of us, 30% are saying, actually, I'm not disillusioned. And if you look at other populations, It's actually much larger. So you'll see 30%. Look at the bottom right here. 30% of white voters say a great deal of disillusionment. And so, what would that mean about the reason that they are voting the way that they are? We are saying that we don't trust the system, but we're not disillusioned. We know what to do. And so that's some of the nuance when you're hearing about this. We're still taking action. We just aren't as trustful. So let's look at trust. They also measured this. Black respondents have much lower levels of trust, whereas white and Asian American respondents have significantly higher levels of trust. Isn't that so interesting? So disillusionment is flipped. We're not as disillusioned as white, Latinos, Asian Americans, but they have, a multiracial sector have a higher level of trust where we don't have trust. Y'all know what that's about. You know what that's about. We know that we don't trust it. We're not sure you're going to count every vote. We're not sure you're going to do exactly what you say you're going to do, but we're going to take action. We're going to make our attempt heard. This is the core of Black voter psychology. And what's so juicy and good, and what we have known as practitioners and leaders of Black people, is we create community, baby. Hello, Tyranny. It's so good to see you. We create community. And what their research showed is that when there is a feeling of belonging, when there's a feeling that you're a part of something, we show up and we show out. Look at this graph. 30% of Black people feel a great deal of belonging. This is our untapped magic. This is what we're so good at. This is what we've always done. This is what our people count on us for. We make our world. We do the work of getting our people out. We say that our folks will get to the polls. And the reason is because we already feel that. And it's one of the proudest parts of being Black. Being a Black woman, knowing that I can walk down the street and y'all are looking for me. You're looking for my eyes. That when we're in a space, we're looking for each other, nodding, hugging. I love that about us. We deserve it all. We deserve it all. We deserve a thriving world where we have as much power as it takes for us to live good, self-determined lives. And guess what? When we create a sense that we belong, there's a confidence and a power in our actions. And so we know what to do here. Keep digging into this research. Listen, I know that y'all are feeling me on this. We gotta go porch by porch, beloveds. We know what to do. We gotta let our people know how much we love them, how much we value their voices, that we know that we're navigating a system. But guess what? We have every single thing that we need to get our people the information to take action. We're going to let them know they can go to vote.org, they can go to vote.gov. You're going to send them your favorite voter organization. I'm absolutely going to come back and share a ton of get out the vote information with all of you through Black Campaign School. But we got to take responsibility for ourselves. This is our moment to take responsibility for ourselves. So this is my call to action, all right? Whew. A lot of data, a lot of information. Millions and millions of us are going to vote, will be communicated by all sorts of people about voting. Millions and millions of us do not intend to vote, do not feel connected to it, or may never even see the information about it. And we have huge political opportunities that could completely change our day-to-day life, our access to the things around us. And also, what we do now sets up this next 10 years. And so, my question for you as we close out our discussion here, as you prepare to journal about the information that you learned and stay in dialogue with me, what would it take now? What would it take now to engage Black voters joyfully, respectfully by the millions? What would it take to engage us by the thousands and the hundreds? Or maybe just every single person around your kitchen table, every single person at your job, every single person on your block. Now, this isn't a radical ask. We ask each other of this all the time. We're constantly saying brick by brick, block by block, souls to the polls. I'm saying front porch very specifically because for many of us, we are as isolated as ever. We do not feel connected in many, many, many ways. And so we got to get to the brass tacks. We got to get back to the basics. We got to introduce ourselves. We got to be willing to ask a person if they're registered to vote. So many people make assumptions that everyone has the same types of information, and we have to be willing to share. And so, one of the planted seeds I want to impart with you on is thinking about Election Day in your world as a holiday. Now, I believe, and voting rights advocates for many years have been trying to make Election Day a holiday. In a pro voting society, why wouldn't we have Election Day as a holiday? But it's not. It's a good idea for federal legislation that Congress could pass that would allow us to take off work, that would allow our entire communities to have a voting festival where we could celebrate and encourage each other to make our voices heard. But until then, we make our own festivals. We're going to make our own Black parties. Great organizations, Working Families Party, Joy to the Polls, so many others. They make sure that there's food, that there are DJs, that there are marching bands. That works. It works, baby. And so we want you to do even more about that. Develop culture around this. I'm not just talking to the people who do this professionally, although this is all for y'all. I'm also doing it for us, our everyday people, my brothers who might be watching. You can make that so in your family. So how are you doing that? Could you take the day off? Could you tell your organization, actually, Election Day, we take off? You can do a party at the polls. We want you to celebrate the voters around you. I absolutely love getting my sticker. I love getting my ice cream afterwards. And while it seems like a simple idea, what if in your household, what if in your group chat, what if you said that this year y'all would all meet up after you voted? Maybe you all live in different neighborhoods, you go to different polling locations. Maybe you have breakfast together, you have lunch together. After you go voting, after work, you have a cocktail together. Lean in on actually making something a gimmick. Why not? Why don't we give everyone an experience of their civic participation? Remind others that we vote in honor of others. Our formerly incarcerated community members who are not being treated as full citizens, we vote for them. Our people who have passed on, we vote for them. Our young people, our children who can't vote yet, we vote for them. We remind people over and over again that where they can stand in the gap and make their voices heard. There are so many great strategies around this, but I love on Election Day when there are small businesses across the community that are giving out ice cream, giving out lemonade. If you're a campaign, you're not able to legally make these things happen, you shouldn't even worry about it because there are nonprofit organizations and small business owners. If you're watching, if you're a small business owner, if you have sway with the business owners or coalition in your area, why don't you ask them, what if we made Election Day a specific coupon in our neighborhood? You take it completely out of the political space and make it about your community. These are things we can still do. We can text our family, our friends right now, and we can let them know about what's at stake. And last but certainly not least, we are inviting. We are inviting. This is how I got so hopefully addicted to campaigns, is I was invited to participate in my community. I was invited to see myself in this strategy. That first ever time that I showed up to a campaign office and was given a clipboard, it was an invitation for me to understand and see myself as a part of everything. And that's what we have the chance to do. Take your time, spell it out for people. What's wrong with that? Rewrite your scripts. If you're just a regular person, like, shoot, I am now. I'm just a teacher now. I'm not a campaign manager. I'm retired. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write in my little notes app a message. I'm going to send it to my family, make sure everybody's registered. I'm going to send it to my friends, make sure we're good. And when people say to us, I actually don't know about that, I don't care about that, you are not going to say, ugh, and move on. Come on, organizer. You're not going to leave people behind. I know you watching right now are not going to leave anybody behind. You're going to invite them into why you take action, to why you make your voice heard. You're going to remind them that this is all, we're all wrapped up together and they belong with us. They belong with people who have power. And connected to that is letting people know that you're a safe place for them to ask questions. This has always been something that I have felt really privileged. People constantly ask me about voting when I was a kid, even though we were poor and it didn't seem like we always had a lot of institutional power. Because my mother was a poll worker, everyone asked us about voting. People would ask her how to get registered, etc. People still do that with me. I absolutely love it. Be a safe house for people to ask you. Maybe that's a part of your message. I want to let you know, anyone in my community, if you have any questions about voting, you can privately, securely ask me about it. I would love to ask you or answer. I would love to answer. Be a safe house for those who may feel embarrassed that they don't have as much information as you. And then, of course, you're going to bring them to Black Campaign School so they can keep getting all of this really good information, all right? So, in closing, there are threats, there are challenges, there's our attempts every day, but we have enough information, we have enough power, and when we create a place of belonging and access, people will take action, and that's our job, get them to take action. So you're going to leave here, you're going to make a plan, you're going to multiply yourself, multiply your impact, inspire others. And in that plan, you're going to set to think about your family, your block, and you're going to think about your life for the long term. How is civic engagement, not just voting, mutual aid, having a place to exercise your political ideas, how is that a part of your everyday life? Do you have a political home? Maybe there's a monthly dialogue that you could have with your family, with your friends, where you just talk about the issues right now. You put topics in a hat. Maybe you decide how you debate. This is an incredibly dim time for our country. A lot is going on. We feel it. Our people are unhappy. They're worried. They're overwhelmed. And there's a lot of misinformation. But we're the leaders of our folks. And we have the opportunity to remind everyone that we are working for long term electoral justice. And so, with that, I thank you so much for joining State of Black Voters here tonight. I hope that you got something out of this. I would love to hear your thoughts. You can send me an email at win@blackcampaignschool.org. I'm on IG at Black Campaign School. I'm also at Black Camp Bird on IG. I'm writing on Substack. And so I'm going to start putting my lessons here, making sure that you can have an archive of all this nerdery. And then TikTok. I'm on Bird's Words. And so you can get clips, you can share information here. And what you're going to do is you're going to synthesize, integrate this. We're going to keep the conversation going. You're going to share it with folks in your life. And then you are going to come back next week for money, power, and respect. where we are going to talk about the economic system inside of this greater political system, how billionaires are attempting to buy our elections. And we're also going to talk about the political industrial complex and that respect word, how we can give it, how we can show it, and lead with respect every single time. So I cannot wait to see you next week. You're going to get a poll, or you're going to see a poll online of how we should keep this thing going. If you're enjoying this series, if there's another topic that you want me to go in on, please share it. Please share it. I want you to let me know. The last two classes are a bit of a wild card. I have a sense of what I'm going to do, but I want to hear from you. I want to make sure that we're delivering things that you need before November. So make your voice heard, vote with us, vote with Black Campaign School, and just feel us at your back as you're making change in your community and in your families. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week.